We've been calling for this for years, guys. Did we need blockbusters and then a diverse slate to come in behind them? We can't complain about that in September. That's what's here. This is the Box Office Podcast. I'm Daniel Loria, the editorial director of Box Office Pro, the pulse of theatrical exhibition. And in this week's episode, we are going to be previewing the September box office, all the wide releases coming to a theater near you, and a couple of specialty titles that we are personally looking forward to. We've got a full panel in this week's episode. Joining us here from the Box Office Studios is Russ Fischer. From the Box Office Company is Romeo Duchene. And from Box Office Pro, my colleagues, Chad Kennerk and Pahle. Welcome, everyone. I have to start this episode with a confession. College football started last weekend, so like many people, unfortunately, I did not make it out to the movies. I was sitting on my couch Thursday night, sweating it out as my Colorado Buffaloes barely eked out a win against a very good North Dakota State. But we won. That's all we need. I hope you guys had good movie-going weekends. Romeo, I know you went out here. Is this your second or third Labor Day weekend as a U.S. resident?
It's my third one, but I still don't feel American enough because I didn't get this reflex, this habit of like, yeah, it's football weekend. Mm-hmm. And I want to have this reflex, this habit of sports, American sports, but still not. Maybe next one.
When I go see the University of Colorado's away game, playing not in Lawrence, Kansas, Russ, where you're going to end up shortly, but they're playing in Kansas City later this fall.
Where I am now.
You should make out that where you are now. Yeah, I'm trying to make that trip. So Russ, just a heads up, I might drag Romeo with me to the Kansas area. You don't have to sit through college football from the Big 12 if you don't have to.
I don't know what any of those words mean in the context in which you said them.
You're from the Carolinas, Rebecca. It's basketball country.
I know. I actively avoid college sports. I make it out to Film Forum to see Sugarland Express as part of their Steven Spielberg series. So that was fun. Actually, I want to a quick shout out. My parents went out to the Grail Movie House in Nashville and ended up talking to the people who run it, who are fans of the podcast. So hi to Stephen DeVita from the Grail Movie House in Asheville, North Carolina. They loved the theater, and my dad said it was the best movie theater popcorn he'd ever had, which is high praise because he's where I get my love of movie theater popcorn from.
Oh, I love hearing that when our relatives get to go to local theaters. Let's talk box office because we've got great movies coming up in the month of September. A little bit of a whimper at the end of August, but we kind of expected it, honestly. It was a Labor Day weekend.
It's August.
Yeah, late August. You usually have like a late August bullet train-ish summer movie there that can make 40, 50. Equalizer 3 did 40 million plus last year. We didn't have that this year.
Is it Reagan? Is that the closest equivalent to?
Yeah, closest. It overperformed significantly. Number 7 in Showtime market share ended up opening at the number 4 spot in the weekend box office. So great congratulations to our friends over at Showbiz Direct that were here last week talking about their company. But we've got a big weekend coming up because that's how we're going to kick off this September preview in the marketplace. Beetlejuice, one of the biggest Warner Brothers releases of the fall. And it's going to be a Q3 and Q4 that Warner Brothers is really going to be flexing its muscles here. Let's start with this Beetlejuice sequel. We've got an opening weekend forecast between $115 and $145 million for this title. This has just been going up and up and up since we started tracking it. Let's start with reactions here. Chad, I know on your end, this was one of those movies where you saw the footage, the presentation more than the footage. We saw some footage at CinemaCon, but it was more for presentation. But you were really excited by what you saw in Vegas back in April.
Yeah, I'm a huge Tim Burton fan. And, after he did Dumbo at Disney, he considered retiring because it was not a great experience. So
by the way, I didn't know this movie exists. Anyone here, show of hands?
I vaguely remembered it. I thought it went straight to Disney Plus.
It did, right?
I forgot it even.
No, it didn't.
It didn't.
I went to theaters, yeah.
Yeah, it was before Disney Plus even launched. I interviewed Burt. Yeah, I did a bunch of interviews and press for that movie.
I forgot.
And I still forgot that it exists.
Wow.
He recently said that coming back and doing this film, it's a sequel that's been kind of in the works and talked about for years and years and years, that it's kind of reinvigorated him. So
that's nice.
I'm very excited to see it.
Yeah. I had my era where I was a big Tim Burton fan, and it has been a long time since he made a movie that I would get behind without any qualifications.
Yeah, same.
Yeah, I agree with that.
Like I kind of liked the Frankenweenie, expansion, although it was like kind of a vanity thing, but I enjoyed it. But I mean, yeah, I guess I'm just, maybe what it is I'm just not a big Tim Burton fan.
Yeah. I think Charlie and the Chocolate Factory for me was the point after which I was like, I'm not, no.
But I think we're missing a key thing here, and I can understand why we're talking about Tim Burton. But there's also Jenna Ortega.
Well, that's a selling point, right? That's what lifts this movie to 100 million plus opening weekend. Jenna Ortega, just a huge star, and that was just perfect casting for this frame.
Well, and it's like the idea of, Burton and Ortega collaborating on Wednesday, that doing very well for Netflix, introducing probably a big audience to Burton and the idea of Beetlejuice, who maybe, to them, Beetlejuice is an old movie. Beetlejuice is the sort of movie they're maybe not going to watch on their own, but Wednesday is a good lead in. And then it turns into like, I think it's a huge part of why this movie is tracking so highly. And people think very highly of Beetlejuice. Like, Beetlejuice is a good movie, and people of a variety of generations still really love that movie for good reason. And so as far as legacy sequels go, it's a smart play by everybody at the very least.
Nostalgia sequel plus an exciting new talent in the film, I think, spells success for Warner Brothers here. For me personally, I got off the Tim Burton train after Sleepy Hollow. I unfortunately haven't liked anything after Sleepy Hollow.
There's stuff I kind of liked. Sweeney Todd, I kind of liked.
Sweeney Todd, yes. Sweeney Todd.
But yeah, it's looking back at everything. I'm like, I guess for me, he's kind of more misses than hits. But that's not meant to be representative of anything. People like him. People go see his movies. So
especially when you look into the search and who's behind for searching this movie, and this is a big green light to me. It's clear that this movie attracts a very diverse audience. Right now, the most comparable movie in terms of age demographic could be like Ghostbusters Afterlife, but it could also be Top Gun. It's a little bit older than Top Gun. Like, there's a big chunk of people above 45 years old, like at least 26%, when it is usually more like 20%. So yeah, the audience is gonna be old for sure, but I can still see a lot of young audience. Like, there's more than 30% of the search people were between 25 and 34 years old. So that's a big green light to me.
That Google search data, super key when we look at what we can expect in terms of walk-up ticket sales, because the pre-sales have been great. I think the walk-ups are going to be consistent here throughout the weekend.
Oh yeah, and I think in terms of pre-sales, last time I checked, for our network, the pre-sale were higher than the first day of Twister.
Wow.
So that was already,
that's a good benchmark. And for our listeners, when Romeo mentions our pre-sales, our parent company, the Boxoffice company, runs ticketing platforms and websites for a number of circuits, not only in the U.S., but also abroad, many countries. So we do have some general overview access data on that end, and it's great to see that this is picking up steam. So again, $100 million plus opening weekend for this title. The ceiling might be 150 for opening weekend. We think a little bit lower. 145 is probably a more realistic ceiling for opening weekend here on the Beetlejuice sequel. In any case, this is going to be what drives the September box office in terms of blockbusters. Now, we have other wide releases coming out, some limited ones as well, that are on the more interesting side of the conversation. Not everything has to be a $100 million opening movie or a $100 million movie at all, period. There are a lot of exciting movies here complementing the calendar. One thing that Exhibition always asked for was, if you have a blockbuster, you need the modest mid-range hits to also come up throughout the schedule. We have that in September.
I do want to mention the same weekend as Beetlejuice, we do have coming out from A24, The Front Room, from the other Eggers, and I've been hearing good things about it. Like, honestly,
and that stars Brandy, and it's like, it's a good Beetlejuice. Maybe not counter-programming exactly, but it's almost...
It looks weird to be like an A24. It doesn't look like an A24, like, quote-unquote type.
It looks like a Blumhouse movie.
But it looks fun.
Yeah, it looks like a Blumhouse movie, and so it's like, I can see that movie overperforming.
Yeah, I can see it as a breakout sort of
Totally.
potential.
It's looking for screens right now. I think the Showtime market share is going to be its biggest battle for opening weekend. Right now, just because of the Showtime battle, as it tries to lock up screens against everything in the market, we've got an opening weekend range between 4 to 6 million on the modest side. But again, this isn't an expensive movie. Like, it's opening against Beetlejuice. It knows what its expectations are. It doesn't have to outperform at the multiplex. It just has to play a role. And I think it might have some staying power if what we're hearing about it sticks true, because like Rebecca, I think the word of mouth has been slowly building on
And
the
it's a
front
good
run.
month. I mean, you can't really have too many mid-range yet positively reviewed horror movies coming out.
The following weekend, 9/13, Speak No Evil has a pretty decent opening weekend range right now, between 15 and 20 million. We're expecting a good high teens range for something like this. I mean, the market needs these sort of thrillers to just get us little by little closer to that Halloween weekend.
Every year we need some movie where James McAvoy is just acting nuts.
That's what I was going to say.
Well, that's the appeal of, I mean, I don't know if anybody else has seen the original Speak No Evil. I'm very curious to see what the cinema score is going to be on this movie, because the original is bleak. Put it that way. It has one of the bleakest endings of a movie that I've seen in a while. And the trailer for this version very much plays like a shot-for-shot remake of the original movie, which evidently this version is not. There are some differences, and I've spoken to multiple people who've seen the new Speak No Evil who say, like, oh yeah, don't be too concerned about how similar it is or it's not. This one stands on its own merits, and those merits may just be Scoot McNairy and, you know, James McAvoy and Mackenzie Davis kind of going at it, because that's kind of what the original movie is too. It's really like an actor's, like, do you enjoy seeing these actors go at it? Also kind of a minor Halt and Catch Fire reunion, so that's kind of neat.
Right,
if you're
good
a
show.
fan of that show. If you're not a fan of that show, watch Halt and Catch Fire. It was very good.
Yeah, I was a big fan of that. That aired, what, like almost 10 years ago? No. Great cast in that show, and it's nice to see that mini reunion here in a thriller. Opening against that on 9/13, we've got an action movie from Lionsgate, The Killer's Game, and you will be hearing from its director on next week's episode of the Box Office Podcast. A more modest opening weekend expectation for that title, between 4 to 8 million. Early fall action counterprogrammer from Lionsgate in what's really been a restructuring year for the company. I think next year we'll see, I think, a more robust slate.
When are they going to put out this Michael Jackson movie trailer? We saw it at CinemaCon. It hasn't been put out yet.
I think if you put it out now, people are going to want to see it in Thanksgiving. Like, that's how much like attention I think it'll draw.
That's a big one they have coming up that will either mean great things for them or not so great. I don't know. That's a risk.
I'm waiting for Michael Jackson too, and my personal forecast right now is ranging around $70 million, and it keeps rising. So, yeah, and I have to admit, this is my best performer in my Hollywood Stock Exchange portfolio. So, I'm tracking it very closely.
Keeping an eye on it.
The Lionsgate thing is interesting, though, because between The Killer's Game and the beginning of October, the middle of October, they have a movie coming out almost every week, Lionsgate. And they just had two in August. And I'm like, I have questions.
You know? I think that might be by design.
They're completely different. They're so, I mean, which is something Lionsgate has always done. They've always been very diverse with their content.
Sure, but the diversity is great, and I think Lionsgate has done a lot for a bunch of different filmmakers and for a lot of titles that might have struggled otherwise. This particular batch of movies, it seems like Lionsgate does not have the resources to promote or distribute.
They seem to kind of just be dumping a lot of stuff to get it out of the way a little bit.
It's from another regime.
Yeah.
I mean, there's a new executive team there, and all the old movies are coming out this year. And I think there's the retooled Lionsgate. I think you will be seeing that slate next year.
I feel like Megalopolis, which we'll get to in detail in a few minutes, is the one movie in the current Lionsgate lineup that's like, oh, this is like a movie they're really going to get behind. Although the structure of that is weird because of Coppola. But yeah, I think you're right. There's like White Bird, which comes out on October 4th. That movie has been on and off the schedule for 2 years.
I feel like we've seen that at 3 CinemaCons at this point. Yeah. Definitely 2.
Well, let's go now to the weekend of September 20th, because we've got another animated title here, one of two animated titles to close out the month that we expect to do positive business. Romeo, I want to hear on your data set what you have for Transformers 1. This is an animated film from Paramount. We currently have it opening between $40 to $50 million that month. What does your data tell you about this title?
Yeah, well, I think, first of all, a good comparison could be Hotel Transylvania 2, opened at $48 million here in the US, and Cube at 170. So long legs. Definitely had a lot of long legs. I don't see Transformers 1 having those long legs, especially that the White Robot, I think is going to be released the week after from Universal Pictures. And it's quite similar in terms of forecast. When I look into the search, the number of search, it's very, very, very similar to the White Robot. It's way lower than Despicable Me 4, no doubt about that, but definitely lower.
It's very bold. They're releasing right after, 1 week after another animated feature on an IP that is, I mean, Transformers is name recognition all day.
Yeah.
I mean, it kind of makes me curious because they've got to be really confident in the quality of the film, at least, if they're...
I guess so, but right now I see Transformers 1 beating the White Robot. In terms of Cube, I see Transformers 1 going around like 100, and White Robot probably like 80, 90, but it's still very similar. So still good box office for the market, especially this month of September. So
the Wild Robot Day 2 has bounced around a bit. It's moved at least once.
Yeah, and I'm not sure this is the best landing place for it.
It feels like if it came out a couple weeks earlier, then it would have had virtually no... I mean, obviously you don't want to push it later because then you obviously have run into the Thanksgiving, Christmas, Disney window there.
When you have multiple release dates are not really the same all around the world. And for instance, Transformers 1 is going to be released on the 20th of September here in the US. But France pick another date, which is closer to the holidays, school holidays, by the end of October. So it's also a sign of me when you don't align that much on the release date, it's because your movie is not that strong and you need to find room for your movie in other countries.
You're trying to arrange it specifically into the calendar when kids are going to be out of school because it's not...
Yeah. And we've seen this happen with the World Cup, for example, right? In Europe, where if you have a big sporting event happening in the European country or the Euro Cup, you'll play with the dates. That's not the case here. So this is really jumping all over the place. But I think a $40 to $50 million opening weekend is going to be an important foundation for Transformers 1.
Yeah. It looks like the sort of film that, I mean, just from what we saw at CinemaCon, could have a really solid 3D play.
Yeah. Great point. I hadn't seen 3D exercised effectively too long.
We sound like it's a bad news and a bad movie, but actually it's pretty decent. And I'm quite excited about Transformers 1. I think I've watched the trailer like 3 times. So, no, it's decent box office.
Yeah, it looks more like the footage we saw. The trailer makes it, kind of leans into the cornier. Like, what if Optimus Prime's name was something
else?
But I don't know. I'm curious about it.
I agree that 3D footage, I wasn't super excited about the trailer, but that footage, I was like, oh, okay.
It kind of looks nuts.
Yeah, I could get behind this, yeah.
I think there's potential with Transformers to engage an audience that maybe wasn't wild about the Michael Bay movies or, has never quite gotten what they wanted to get out of the live-action Transformers movies. There's an angle there, like it's very much a throwback to the cartoons that a lot of people who are 40 to 50 still really like. For
the death of Optimus Prime and the Orson Welles. It was Orson Welles' last theatrical credit.
Transformers the movie, yeah, right? Totally.
Yeah,
but I can see Transformers 1 overperforming because I think there's an audience that is sort of like as soon as they hear that maybe there's something more for them than they expect there to be, that they might turn up for it and take their kids and all that sort of thing.
Yeah. I feel like it's kind of like Sonic. There's outside of the realm of film franchises, there's a big fan bases oriented around other media.
Yes.
Which I feel like kind of for people who only look at it from the film perspective, I guess it can kind of be a surprise as to what's popular outside of that particular window.
Totally. Yeah.
And especially like Russ, I do think this movie kind of overperformed, especially when you look at the trailer 2. The vibe is so different from the trailer 1. Trailer 1, put the story, put the plot. It's very serious, and trailer 2 is absolutely very, very funny. So that's why I have high hope for this movie. I like this edgy vibe that we see around movies that are outperforming lately. So I have a good vibe about this movie.
I feel weird being excited about a Transformers movie. That's new for me.
See, that's a sign.
That's a strength. That's the strength of the title. That is coming out on September 20th. Opposite of that title, we've got another Lionsgate movie of the week, this time a supernatural horror thriller from French filmmaker Alexandre Aja, whose Crawl movie with the killer crocodiles, killer alligators. I will always respect that man for making that film.
Hell yeah. Barry Pepper does
Barry Pepper was great in that. So this next movie, Never Let Go, with Halle Berry in it, that's opening also that weekend, September 20th. More modest expectations there, an opening weekend between 7 to 10 million. Counterprogramming here from Lionsgate. We're going to say Lionsgate counterprogramming quite a bit because there's just a lot of that.
That is what Lionsgate is that year. It's bottled counterprogramming, which is good, which is what we need.
I mean, I wonder with Never Let Go, because it kind of looks like Quiet Place kind of movie. You know, like it's a post-apocalypse. There's mysterious monsters. There's
kind of cross with the one where Halle Berry's like trying to save her kid from kidnappers. It kind of leans into that.
Yeah. Yeah, totally.
Taken sort of vibe.
Is that a genre now? Is this like Quiet Place type movie a genre? Is that where we're at here?
We had the Watchers. I mean, no one saw it.
Yep. So maybe that's not the best comp title.
No, but it's there. I mean, it's playing a role in the marketplace. Again, it's maybe not the type of movies we're going to get too excited to see, but as opposed to last year where we had nothing,
right?
Instead of something like these movies, we'll take that $7 to $10 million that weekend.
I mean, I feel like Never Let Go is the sort of title that you can spend into being at least a modest hit. But as previously mentioned, that's just not where that studio is right now.
Well, we'll talk a little bit more about finances at Lionsgate and movies that are going to open under $10 million in a little bit. But we do have to talk about things that disappointed us this month. And I think the biggest disappointment here is arguably the best company out there, along maybe with Nike, in terms of like marketing itself, in terms of getting advertising right, which is Apple, has two of the biggest movie stars on the planet, George Clooney and Brad Pitt, in a thriller by the guy that made the last 3 Spider-Man live-action movies. That company threw its hands up in the air saying, we have no idea what to do with this. Does anybody want this? Because now we're going to put this on, maybe 15 screens is maybe what we're going to get from
We're not going to market
Wolves.
it. That's for dang sure.
Yeah, Wolves, starring George Clooney, Brad Pitt, directed by John Watts. This movie was supposed to open in September wide. It is now going limited, is maybe overstating the sort of theatrical footprint this film will have. Great forum over at the Venice Film Festival, which keeps on proving its struggling lack of relevance in the marketplace by giving itself to movies that aren't really going to be marketed or seen by either art house audiences or multiplex audiences. I don't understand what the strategy is there. But anyway.
Reviews of Wolves out of Venice are good. Like people, it's not even like it's a dog. People like the movie,
Well, good luck finding it, especially in theaters. You can find it on Apple Plus if you subscribe to that. I'm not sure how many people do.
But this is the Apple thing, right? Like Apple has so many good shows.
With like Oscar winners and prestigious names, and they're like on season 3, and no one's ever heard of them.
They do no marketing. Nobody watches them. They buy and do some good movies. They have great shows, and nobody watches this stuff. Nobody even knows that some of it exists. And Wolves, to me, I guess that's why it stands out, is it's such a bizarre bellwether of where the industry is right now in terms of positioning movies between streaming and theatrical, what it even means to be a movie right now. Like, Clooney and Pitt are movie stars. They both of them could have 10 years ago, they could have opened this movie to, 60 million, 80, maybe,
And Affleck was in the Daniel. You mentioned the Air Jordans movie that similarly released by a streamer, released in theaters, and was a
Did
solid
well.
performer.
Yeah. I mean, it didn't have to make $100 million. I mean, just
No.
opens to 15, 20, we're good. Yeah, I don't know here. Apple's foray into theatrical has been awful. We have to say it.
Yeah,
Awful.
yeah.
It started by buying a Best Picture winner, with just overspending to get Coda, one of the most accessible mainstream Sundance honorees in recent memory. They buy that movie for an absurd amount of money and then hide it. Basically make the lives of art house exhibitors impossible in trying to book a Best Picture winner, go out of their way to bury it somewhere in the bottom of their Apple Plus TV subscription scheme. And after that, with their high-profile movies, it's finding any free agent distributor that wants to give them a hand because they can't be bothered to hire their own staff.
I just don't know what they're going for. Like, I mean, I guess they're doing this to, raise up the stock and get their subscription numbers where they want them to be. Obviously, we don't know what any of those numbers are, so we're missing crucial information, but I can't suss it out.
Yeah, nobody can. No, it's like, yeah, no regular person can. There's certainly some strategy at work here. There must be, but maybe there's not. I don't know.
The emperor's wearing no clothes sometimes.
Yeah.
And there was a report in the New York Times, I think it was last week, that implied that there were concerns about the brand hit Apple might take if it releases another flop. Obviously, it had an adult skewing title like Fly Me to the Moon earlier this summer that wasn't really well marketed and nobody went to see. There was a concern that with the stars involved, if it had another miss in its hands, it would be concerning. The brand would take a hit. My argument is...
The brand isn't good now.
The brand's in the rock bottom.
If I were a filmmaker, I would at least want to know that they're putting my movie in theaters. I mean, at least it would have a shot at flopping.
Just embarrassing work from Apple on the theatrical side so far. Well, we have to say it. I mean, it's very harsh, but there's no other way to say this on a company that's been able to ace nearly everything else it's done. Now, if you're afraid of, I don't know, how people associate your brand, don't release a $3,000 set of goggles that nobody uses. I'd say that's a lot more embarrassing to your bottom line than putting out a movie into theaters. But hey, what do we know? That's all we'll ever talk about Wolves for the rest of time.
I have to admit now, Daniel, I'm very, very afraid and scared about the Formula One movie. They're spending hundreds of millions of dollars with Brad Pitt, being on track pretty much every week with all the teams, and that's really spending. They're really trying to make this movie look good. So I'm very afraid and scared that we'll not be able to watch it in theater. But now I'm not sure anymore.
That one, I think you will, because that is a more significant partnership with Warner Brothers. So, like some of the things like Wolves, it's like Apple made the movie and then kind of after the fact was like went to different partners, ended up with Sony as a theatrical distribution partner. But my understanding with F1 is that it is a theatrical play from day one, that was part of the conception of the movie. And granted, it's Apple, so who knows? But because it's them and Warner Brothers, like maybe we're going to be in a better situation.
They've got less than a year to figure that out because F1 is slated for the final weekend in June of 2025 in a crowded summer corridor. So good luck. We'll see what happens. Let's go now to our next segment of good luck. We've got on September 27th. Whoa. All right. What to make of this? Listen, I love the romance. And if you go back to our 2024 preview episode that we recorded in late December, came out in January, you will hear Russ and I wax poetic of this romantic idea that Francis Ford Coppola, a man who doesn't have to prove himself to anyone, would go out and sell the vineyard to finance a expensive big screen epic. And I think there's a lot of goodwill to that. And then the months pass by and distributors aren't biting. The reviews out of the Cannes Film Festival are perplexing, to say the best.
They put out the first trailer that has fake, arguably AI-looking generated quotes from
Yep.
Pahle and Kale.
That was the second trailer. But yes.
Yeah. That was just that's not the sort of press you want.
Well, and we can't ignore the footage going around of Francis Ford Coppola allegedly misbehaving on set.
Yeah.
Of
I feel bad for Lionsgate on this one. I feel like they inherited.
Well, feel bad. They didn't inherit anything. They just went ahead and said,
they
"Sure,
opted
we'll do
for
it."
Yeah.
They're like, "Hey, well, we don't have a movie of the week that week, so you've got that slot, Coppola." All this being said, I'll be there opening night. Chad, how do you feel about Megalopolis?
I want to see it. I'm in. I know it's going to be, what is it, like 3 hours? It's a long one, right?
Yeah.
Oh. I'm there for it.
Sure.
I haven't really seen a recent film that Coppola has made. He's definitely in a different career stage now. This one does not make me want to change that, really.
I'll tell you, I am a defender of recent Coppola, in as much as there even is any reason. I mean, the last movie he made was Twixt was 11 years ago, something like that. But
was that the one with the weird roadshow release that was like also innovative? Like, I give him a lot of credit for at least trying to think outside the box.
There was a big like home video release sort of situation, and there have been multiple cuts of it.
Well, there have been multiple cuts of all of Coppola's
pretty much
at
Coppola,
this point.
Yeah.
He's the only person who's in the same league as Coppola with recutting movies is Ridley Scott. But the recut version of Twixt, I like it, and I like Youth Without Youth. And I think it's interesting to see the guy doing this. Megalopolis might be a giant boondoggle, but like Daniel, I'm there. Also, with respect to Lionsgate, isn't the deal basically that Coppola is paying for P&A? They're like putting it into theaters and doing some of the machinery of that, but like the ad spend comes from Coppola.
Yeah, it doesn't seem like Lionsgate has anything on the book for this title. I don't think there's a lot we can say about how Lionsgate is handling some of its slate this year.
Right.
This is, I just think, nobody wants it. You guys sure? Neon? No? A24? Apple. Come on. No? Okay. We'll take it. Sure.
Somebody needs to send out the DCPs.
Yeah, like that's it. That's what it seems like. And we've got an opening weekend range here, even with those IMAX screens, quite low, between 4 to 8 million at this point. Of course, all of these ranges evolve and are available the Thursday before release on our website, boxofficepro.com, and are not indicative in any measure of a film's quality, success, or interest level for us. I'm more interested with a wild swing like this than I am with literally 80% of the movies that have come out this year.
Yeah, I mean, Megalopolis looks like it's a crazy endeavor from top to bottom, which means by default, I want to see it. Do audiences want to see that? Probably not.
No.
What's the cinema score going to be on this one, I wonder?
Well, you're only going to have like core audience. I don't think anyone other than people going into it knowing what to expect are going to be buying a ticket, right?
Maybe.
Like, I think it's one of those things like, if you
maybe
vote
before
down
the bad press, you can hook in people who are maybe just curious, but
at 3 hours, that's kind of like a Horizon thing, right? I mean, if you're in the bag, you're in the bag. If you're not, if it's not the genre, it's the running time, it's the screen count. I don't know. It's gonna be tough.
Yeah.
But we applaud it. I want to see more wild swings, so I'm not going to criticize that aspect of it. I'm really happy that this found a distributor, that it's out there, but I think we would have all hoped at the beginning of the year that a major studio would have committed a lot of resources to this, but then again, the film has to warrant it.
And it is getting an IMAX release, so maybe that'll put some extra dollars in there.
And the month closes, I think, in another interesting note here with the second animated release, The Wild Robot from DreamWorks Animation and Universal. Romeo, you were speaking a little bit about the data you were seeing on Transformers 1, how The Wild Robot is looking competitive in relation to that. We currently have an opening weekend range between 25 and 30 million for The Wild Robot. So yes, below Transformers 1. But you know what? This can really pick up. And I think the legs on this can impress if the word of mouth is positive. Original IPs, of course, it's not an original IP, but it's not a well-known animated sequel like the ones that have worked this year. So it's a little bit of a unsure thing, unproven commodity in the market. Chad, were you excited about the footage you saw of this at CinemaCon?
Yeah, I'm really interested in it. It's based on a book I haven't read, but I taught a children's theater camp this summer, and I asked them what are movies that you're excited about, and a lot of them said The Wild Robot.
Oh, that's a good
And I
sign.
thought
That's a
that was
good
pretty
sign.
early for them to even know that was coming out.
That's really, really good.
Yeah.
To have kids that age know that there's a big screen adaptation of that property coming out in late September is a really, really good sign of that awareness that you need.
I'm genuinely excited to take my kid to this movie, which is
that's sweet.
You know,
by the way, has he gone
It looks
to any
like it's
movies?
going to mess me up emotionally. It looks like an Iron Giant level leap fest.
It does, yeah. The trailer looks great, but yeah, I think for me, the Iron Giant is very much the comp title. Hopefully, financially, it's not the comp title, but yeah, he's been to the movies. He's seen a handful of things. We took him to Wonka end of last year. He saw Inside Out 2. He saw Inside Out 2 while I went to the Scott Wampler Memorial screening in Boston this past June. And then he's watched a lot of movies at home, but he's seen maybe 4 things theatrically at this point.
It's going to be a nice addition. And now we've got other movies here, maybe that don't have the same screen count that these movies will have, but some interesting titles coming out on the body horror side. And this wouldn't be the Box Office Podcast without a body horror title mentioned in it. September 18th, coming out from, is it Movie that's releasing? The Substance. This title is one of the best reviewed movies of the year. Anyone that's seen it has been talking about it in a must-see. If you liked Dennis Quaid in Reagan, you might like him in The Substance. So I'm just putting that out there right now. Reagan core audience, buy a ticket for his next movie coming out in mid-September.
Does Scott Stapp play Frank Sinatra in The Substance too?
Like we said, it's a horror movie.
Yeah, this looks incredible. I can't wait to see The Substance, but it's body horror. The trailers make me a little queasy. Russ, what's your level of excitement for a movie like this?
Pretty high. I mean, I like that sort of kind of sicko stuff. It's very much in the David Cronenberg vein. You know, this is kind of a comeback role for Demi Moore. It's her playing a woman who's, you know, given an opportunity to supposedly become the best version of her younger self, the ingestion of a mysterious substance. And, you know, things I think don't go very well. So it's, it's great.
I'm not watching I don't want to know anything before going. This is one where I'm going to go in blind.
You'd expect the Demi Moore renaissance to come on a little bit earlier. She's someone that I half expected to pop up in a Quentin Tarantino movie at some point. Like it, I always felt there was an interesting late career arc.
Yeah.
That
I always forget she was
with.
like one of the producers on the Austin Powers movies. Like
Yeah.
I forget how rich she probably is.
I had no idea. That's crazy.
Yeah.
And I mean, Chad, are you at all appealed by this movie?
Yeah, I'm not a huge body horror fan, but this definitely intrigues me. I like Margaret Qualley, so I'm looking forward to seeing it.
I said it's a comeback movie for Moore. She's obviously been around, but like this, I think this movie kind of has the potential to push her forward as, you know, as a star again. I agree with you. Like her being in a Tarantino movie would make sense. The big problem there is that Tarantino just doesn't make enough movies. So, but you know, you want your Tarantino thing. This has Margaret Qualley, who was in Once Upon a Time in Hollywood. So there's your connection.
And of course, in terms of body horror and French cinema, there's been a good track record of both of those elements coming together. Of course, we can't forget the Palme d'Or winner a couple of years ago, Titane, that ended up being $1 million movie here in the US. Surprised it made that much from Neon, but happy that it did. So yes, The Substance doesn't have blockbuster expectations behind it, but it doesn't need them. I think this is going to be one of the most talked about movies of the year after it comes out, at least within film fans. Of course, the shopping mall multiplex audience might not really pay attention to it, but hey, this isn't a movie for that audience, and that's okay. They have plenty to look forward to. Talking about smaller films that might make an impact with the horror nerds, we've got Azrael here, Shudder and IFC title. Russ, you pointed this one out as being on your radar. What pops out at you about it?
couple of different things. It's from a filmmaker named Evan Katz, or he's credited as E.L. Katz. He made a movie called Cheap Thrills a decade ago that was terrific, and he's been around in various capacities doing other titles since then. It's written by Simon Barrett, who wrote movies like The Guest and You're Next, and who works with director Adam Wingard a bunch. I think Barrett actually wrote part of the recent Godzilla, Kong, The New Empire.
And X versus...
Yes. Yeah, exactly.
One of them.
It stars Samara Weaving, who was in Ready or Not, who had a small role in Scream 6, one of these actors who's kind of like a burgeoning new Scream queen kind of figure. And it just looks like a bloody, weird mess of a good time of a horror title.
Samara Weaving should be a bigger star, in my opinion. I think she delivers in pretty much every movie she's in. Yeah, we'll see how that career evolves. But I think an interesting month of September, all in all, we've got a huge blockbuster to open up the month this weekend. A number of genre films, a number of thrillers, horror movies, animated titles. We've been calling for this for years, guys. Did we need blockbusters and then a diverse slate to come in behind them? We can't complain about that in September. That's what's here.
Yep.
I want my cheesy, diverse horror movie slate before we start getting into award season and everything is 3 hours and award seasoning.
Yeah. Well, hey, what if, in October you get Terrifier 3, so maybe you get both of those things in one. 3 hours and cheesy, gross horror.
Oh man, October is going to be wild. We've got a lot of titles there, and we will talk about all of them in a month from now when we go over that October slate. In the meantime, thank you so much for listening to us. On behalf of myself, Daniel Loria, and our panel this week, Chad Kennerk, Russ Fischer, Romeo Duchene, and Rebecca Pahle, thank you for listening to the Box Office Podcast. This show is produced by the Box Office Company in collaboration with Box Office Pro and Record Edit Podcast, and we will be back again with you guys next Thursday. Thanks for listening.